The Easter holidays were not exactly relaxing. The third years had never had so much homework. Neville Longbottom seemed close to a nervous collapse, and he wasn't the only one. "Call this a holiday?" Seamus Finnegan roared in the common room one afternoon. "The exams are ages away. What are they playing at?" Nobody had as much to do as Hermione. Even without divination, she was taking more subjects than anyone else. She was usually last to leave the common room at night, first to arrive at the library the next morning. She had shadows like Lupin under her eyes and seemed constantly close to tears. Ron had taken over responsibility for Buckbeak's appeal. When he wasn't doing his own work, he was poring over enormously thick volumes with names like The Handbook of Hippogriff Psychology and A Foul or Foul, a study of hippogriff brutality. He was so absorbed, he even forgot to be horrible to Crookshanks. Meanwhile, Harry had to fit in his homework around Quidditch practice every day, not to mention endless discussions of tactics with Wood. The Gryffindor-Slytherin match would take place on the first Sunday after the Easter holidays. Slytherin was leading the tournament by exactly 200 points. This means, as Wood constantly reminded his team, that they needed to win the match by more than 200 points to win the cup. It also meant that the burden of winning fell largely on Harry because capturing the snitch was worth 150 points. "So, you must catch it only if we're more than 50 points up," Wood told Harry constantly. "Only if we're more than 50 points up, Harry, or we win the match but lose the cup. You've got that, haven't you? You must catch the snitch only if we're—" "I know, Oliver!" yelled Harry. The whole Gryffindor house was obsessed with the coming match. Gryffindor hadn't won the Quidditch Cup since the legendary Charlie Weasley, Ron's second oldest brother, had been Seeker. But Harry doubted whether any of them, even Wood, wanted to win as much as he did. The enmity between Harry and Malfoy was at its highest point ever. Malfoy was still smarting about the mud-throwing incident in Hogsmeade, and was even more furious that Harry had somehow wormed his way out of punishment. Harry hadn't forgotten Malfoy's attempt to sabotage him in the match against Ravenclaw, but it was the matter of Buckbeak that made him most determined to beat Malfoy in front of the entire school. Never, in anyone's memory, had a match approached in such a highly charged atmosphere. By the time the holidays were over, tension between the two teams and their houses was at a breaking point. A number of small scuffles broke out in the corridors, culminating in nasty incidents in which a Gryffindor's fourth year and a Slytherin's sixth year ended up in the hospital wing with leaks sprouting out of their ears. Harry was having a particularly bad time of it. He couldn't walk to class without Slytherins sticking out their legs or trying to trip him up. Crabbe and Goyle kept popping up wherever he went, and slouching away, looking disappointed when they saw him surrounded by people. Wood had given instructions that Harry should be accompanied everywhere he went, in case the Slytherins tried to put him out of action. The whole of Gryffindor House took up the challenge enthusiastically, so that it was impossible for Harry to get to classes on time because he was surrounded by a vast chattering crowd. Harry was more concerned for his fireball's safety than his own. When he wasn't flying it, he locked it secretly in his trunk and frequently dashed up to Gryffindor Tower at break times to check it was still there. All usual pursuits were abandoned in the Gryffindor common room the night before the match. Even Hermione had put down her books. "I can't work. I can't concentrate," she said nervously. There was a great deal of noise. Fred and George Weasley were dealing with the pressure by being louder and more exuberant than ever. Oliver Wood was crouched over a model of a Quidditch field in the corner, prodding little figures across it with his wand and muttering to himself. Angelina, Alicia, and Katie were laughing at Fred and George's jokes. Harry was sitting with Ron and Hermione, removed from the center of things, trying not to think about the next day. Because every time he did, he had a horrible sensation that something very large was fighting to get out of his stomach. "You're going to be fine," Hermione told him, though she looked positively terrified. "You've got a firebolt," said Ron. "Yeah," said Harry, his stomach writhing. It came as relief when Wood suddenly stood up and yelled, "Team, bed!" Harry slept badly. First, he dreamed that he had overslept and that Wood was yelling, "Where were you? We had to use Neville instead!" Then he dreamed that Malfoy and the rest of the Slytherin team arrived for the match riding dragons. He was flying at breakneck speed, trying to avoid a spurt of flames from Malfoy's steed's mouth, when he realized he had forgotten his firebolt. He fell through the air and woke with a start. It was a few seconds before Harry remembered that the match hadn't taken place yet, and that he was safe in bed, and that the Slytherin's team definitely wouldn't be allowed to play on dragons. He was feeling very thirsty. Quietly as he could, he got out of his four-poster and went to pour himself some water from the silver jug beneath the window. The grounds were still and quiet. No breath of wind disturbed the treetops in the forbidden forest. The Whomping Willow was as motionless and innocent looking. It looked as though the conditions for the match would be perfect. Harry set down his goblet and was about to turn back to bed when something caught his eye. An animal of some kind was prowling across the silvery lawn. Harry dashed to his bedside table, snatched up his glasses, and put them on, then hurried back to the window. It couldn't be the Grim. Not now. Not right before the match. He peered out at the grounds again, and after a minute's frantic searching, he spotted it. It was skirting the edge of the forest now. It wasn't the Grim at all. It was a cat. Harry clutched the window ledge in relief as he recognized the bottle-brush tail. It was only Crookshanks. Or was it only Crookshanks? Harry squinted, pressed his nose flat against the glass. Crookshanks seemed to have come to a halt. Harry was sure he could see something else moving in the shadow of the trees too. And just then, it emerged. A gigantic, shaggy black dog, moving stealthily across the lawn, Crookshanks trotting at its side. Harry stared. What did this mean? If Crookshanks could see the dog as well, how could it be an omen of Harry's death? Ron! Harry hissed. Ron, wake up! Huh? I need you to tell me if you can see something. It's all dark, Harry, Ron muttered thickly. What are you on about? Down here. Harry looked quickly back out of the window. Crookshanks and the dog had vanished. Harry climbed onto the windowsill to look right down into the shadows of the castle, but they weren't there. Where had they gone? A loud snore told him Ron had fallen asleep again. Harry and the rest of the Gryffindor team entered the Great Hall the next day to enormous applause. Harry couldn't help grinning broadly as he saw that both the Ravenclaw and the Hufflepuff tables were applauding too. The Slytherin table hissed loudly as they passed. Harry noticed that Malfoy looked even paler than usual. Wood spent the whole of breakfast urging his team to eat while touching nothing himself. Then he hurried them off to the field before anyone else had finished, so they could get an idea of the conditions. As they left the Great Hall, everyone applauded again. Good luck, Harry, called Cho. Harry felt himself blushing. Okay, no wind to speak of. Sun's a bit bright. That could impair your vision. Watch out for it. Ground's fairly hard. Good. That'll give us a fast kickoff. Wood paced the field, staring around with his team behind him. Finally, he saw the front doors of the castle open in the distance and the rest of the school spilling onto the lawn. Locker rooms, said Wood tersely. None of them spoke as they changed into their scarlet robes. Harry wondered if they were feeling like he was, as though he'd eaten something extremely wriggly for breakfast. In what seemed like no time at all, Wood was saying, Okay, it's time. Let's go. They walked out onto the field to a tidal wave of noise. 3/4 of the crowd was wearing scarlet rosettes, waving scarlet flags with a Gryffindor lion upon it, or brandishing banners with the slogans like, Go Gryffindor! And Lions for the Cup! Behind the Slytherin goalpost, however, 200 people were wearing green, the silver serpent of Slytherin glittering in their flags, and Professor Snape sat in the very front row, wearing green like everyone else, and a very grim smile. And here are the Gryffindors, yelled Lee Jordan, who was acting as commentator, as usual. Potter, Bell, Johnson, Spinnet, Weasley, and Wood, widely acknowledged as the best team Hogwarts has seen in a good few years. These comments were drowned out by a tide of boos from the Slytherin end. And here they come, the Slytherin team, led by Captain Flint. He's made some changes to the lineup, and it seemed he's going for size rather than skill. More boos from the Slytherin crowd. Harry, however, thought Lee had a point. Malfoy was easily the smallest person on the Slytherin team. The rest of them were enormous. Captain, shake hands, said Madam Hooch. Flint and Wood approached each other and grasped each other's hands very tightly. It looked as though each was trying to break the other's fingers. Mount your brooms, said Madam Hooch. 3, 2, 1. The sound of her whistle was lost in a roar from the crowd as 14 brooms rose into the air. Harry felt his hair fly back of his forehead. His nerves left him in the thrill of the flight. He glanced around, saw Malfoy on his tail, and sped off in search of the snitch. And it's Gryffindor in possession. Alicia Spinnet of Gryffindor with the quaffle, heading straight for the Slytherin goalpost. Looking good, Alicia. Oh, no. Quaffle intercepted by Warrington. Wham! Nice bludger work there by George Weasley. Warrington drops the quaffle. It's caught by Johnson. Gryffindor back in possession. Come on, Angelina. Nice swerve around onto you. Duck, Angelina. That's a bludger. She scores. 10-0 to Gryffindor. Angelina punched the air as she soared around the end of the field, and the sea of scarlet below was screaming in delight. Then, ouch! Angelina was nearly thrown from her broom as Marcus Flint went smashing into her. Sorry, said Flint as the crowd below booed. Sorry, I didn't see her. A moment later, Fred Weasley chucked his beater's club at the back of Flint's head. Flint's nose smashed into the handle of his broom and began to bleed. That will do, screeched Madam Hooch, zooming between them. Penalty shot Gryffindor from an unprovoked attack on their chaser. Penalty shot to Slytherin for deliberate damage to their chaser. Come off it, miss, howled Fred, but Madam Hooch blew her whistle and Alicia flew forward to take the penalty. Come on, Alicia, yelled Lee into the silence that had descended on the crowd. Yes, she's beaten the keeper 20-0 to Gryffindor. Harry turned the firebolt sharply to watch Flint, still bleeding, fly forward to take the Slytherin penalty. Wood was hovering in front of the Gryffindor goalpost, his jaw clenched. Of course, Wood is a superb keeper, Lee Jordan told the crowd as Flint waited for Madam Hooch's whistle. Superb, very difficult to get past, very difficult indeed. Yes, I don't believe it, he saved it. Relieved, Harry zoomed away, glancing around for the snitch, but still making sure he caught every word of Lee's commentary. It was essential that he hold Malfoy off the snitch until Gryffindor was more than 50 points up. Gryffindor in possession, no Slytherin in possession, no Gryffindor back in possession, and it's Katie Bell. Katie Bell for Gryffindor with the quaffle. She streaks up the field. That was deliberate. Montague, a Slytherin chaser, had swerved in front of Katie, and instead of seizing the quaffle, had grabbed Katie's head. Katie cartwheeled in the air, managed to stay on her broom, but dropped the quaffle. Madam Hooch's whistle rang out again as she soared over to Montague and began shouting at him. A minute later, Katie had another penalty past the Slytherin keeper. We're going to pause it there.